The judge cleared his throat. That sound small bureaucratic hit harder than any slap my father ever gave me. My father leaned back in his chair, fingers laced over his stomach, smiling like he already owned the room, like he already owned me when he caught my eye. He nodded once familiar, possessive. "Well builded together," he'd whispered earlier, confident a family business like it should been. The judge adjusted his glasses and continued reading. That's when everything began to break. I hadn't seen my father in 13 years, not since the night he told me I was no longer his son. I was 18. I'd chosen art school over his construction empire. He said had chosen failure over blood. He didn't attend my graduation, didn't call when my mother died, didn't answer when I was homeless for 3 months in Denver, sleeping in my car and eating gas station sandwiches. But my grandmother did. She called every Sunday, asked real questions, sent checks. I never cashed. Unless I had to, she visited quietly, never telling my father where she was going. She listened, she watched. She remembered everything. So when her lawyer called me last month, my hands didn't shake. I already knew. The lodge sat on 70 acres in the Rockies, timberstone glass, valued at $136 million, fully paid off a place my father once tried to buy from her. She refused, said some things shouldn't be inherited by force. At the will reading, my father arrived early, suit-sharp hair, dyed confidence rehearsed. He hugged relatives. He despised, he kissed the air near my cheek like we were strangers who shared a joke. He thought this was reconciliation. He thought wrong. The betrayal didn't start that morning, it started 3 weeks earlier. I'd requested a copy of the estate documents routine. I told the firm, that's when I noticed the timing. A shell company registered 2 days after my grandmother's stroke a consulting agreement, drafted but unsigned my father's, handwriting on a margin note, scanned too quickly. He'd tried to move before she was gone. He always moved early. So I did what he taught me without knowing he taught me. I stayed calm. I hired a forensic accountant, a quiet one. I let her comb through years of financials, donations, loans, transfers, disguised as gifts, the kind of moves that look generous until you zoom in. Then I called the one person my father never considered dangerous. His former attorney. The attorney still had the old files, the ones from the year my father disowned me, the threats, the leverage, the affidavit my grandmother filed privately stating that if anything ever shifted ownership under coercion, the contingency clause would activate. A clause no one knew about. Except me. I spent 2 weeks preparing not speeches, not anger paperwork motions, a trust restructure executed, posthumously airtight and ruthless. I didn't want revenge. I wanted finality. The judge reached the end of page 9. In accordance with Clause 17, he read, voice steady, the primary beneficiary retains full control of the mountain lodge and all associated assets in the event of attempted interference by any previously disinherited party. My father straightened. Said assets shall be transferred into a blind trust, appointing a managing director of the beneficiary's choosing. A pause. The room leaned forward. The managing director, the judge continued, is hereby named. He looked up. Mr. Daniel Mercer. My father's lawyer frowned. Daniel Mercer stood from the back row. Former CFO of my father's company. The man my father fired after Daniel refused to cook books. The man who replaced him. My father rose halfway out of his chair. That's not, he started. The judge didn't look at him. Additionally, he said, due to evidence submitted regarding financial misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty, the court recommends immediate review of all current holdings associated with the shell entity Ridgefall Consulting. Silence turned sharp. My father sat back down slowly. His smile collapsed inward. He finally looked at me, not as a son, not as an extension, but as a threat he'd underestimated. I met his gaze. Said nothing. Afterward, He cornered me in the hallway. "You planned this," he said, no anger, just disbelief. I nodded. "You could have talked to me." I shook my head. "You taught me what happens when I do." He opened his mouth, closed, looked smaller than I remembered. For the first time, he had no leverage. I didn't take the lodge. I moved into it. I restored it carefully, quietly, kept the stone, replaced the locks, let Daniel run the numbers, turned the land into a conservation retreat scholarships residencies, something that gave more than it took. My father's company collapsed 6 months later under investigation. He never called. I never waited. Sometimes at night, when the wind cuts through the pines, I hear my grandmother's voice the way it used to sound on Sundays, calm, certain. She didn't leave me money. She left me proof that blood doesn't decide legacy, and silence used correctly can be louder than any name ever spoken.